Hello again. Welcome to the garage. I call it Kern's Works because originally, well, let's go back. Kern's Works. So Kern's is my last name. Works, not W-O-R-K-S for works, but W-E-R-K-S. Kind of a little German twist on it, since I'm normally working on German cars. German cars are my passion. That's where my enthusiast heart lies with the automobile industry. Specifically Volkswagen. Started there when I was 17 with a Volkswagen Rabbit. Had a million Volkswagens, Audis, a few BMWs, a Mini Cooper, and currently have a Porsche Cayman S, which usually resides here in the garage. You'll see there is some Porsche stuff on the wall over there. Got a bunch of Porsche Hot Wheels. Have a signed autograph to me print from Ren Sport Reunion 2023 in October. That was a killer vacation and event at Laguna Seca, California. But here we are. I have a Subaru Crosstrek. The wife needed a new car. She had a V8 BMW X5, which I think is the all-time ultimate SUV, but it was getting high miles. We started having problems with it, so it was time to retire that and buy a new car. Well, I never thought I'd buy a Subaru. Here I am with a Subaru, and I absolutely dig this thing. This thing's killer. I absolutely love driving it. It's comfortable, it's quiet. I'm surprised at how well it's made, considering it's a Japanese import that's, on the more budget-friendly end of the what's available. So, loving it. So, of course, I've got the bug. Yesterday, I did the Eco Hitch, trailer hitch. That is mounted down here. I don't have the actual receiver in, but you can see it's kind of hidden there. There's a little receptacle that goes in there so that you can put your hitch. So did that yesterday, and today we're gonna do the Ironman off-road lift. So I want to lift it. I was kind of trying to do it budget-wise. I'm a Bilstein / Coney suspension kind of guy when it comes to dampers, but we're gonna go and we're gonna give this a shot, and I'm gonna take and do a complete installation video of this. It'll be probably some time lapse, and then we'll focus on specifics. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not a YouTube dude. I'm not an Instagram dude. I'm not TikTok. I'm just a guy enjoying cars. I've been an enthusiast for a long time, and have a new car to kind of screw with. So I'm having fun. This is one of my hobbies, just working in the garage doing stuff. So first time doing suspension on one of these. It looks very straightforward. It's amazing, the front strut assembly up here. You guys in the Volkswagen world, you'll recognize this. This is exactly how the A1, A2, A3 chassis are. So A1 being Mark 1 for you guys, A2 being Mark 2, and A3 being Mark 3. That's how I grew up knowing them, as A1, A2, A3 chassis, until the Audi A4 came along, and it got confusing, and I think that's where the change was. So everything went Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4, Mark 5. But it's real simple. We've got a knuckle here with 2 bolts that attach the strut to the knuckle assembly. That's just like early Rabbit, man. And then on the top, got 3 bolts that hold the strut bearing to the strut tire here. So real simple, straightforward. That's where we're gonna start. I've already got my tools set up, kind of set out here to the side of what I need. I'm gonna use my electric impact. I finally came around to electric probably about 2 years ago. Been still running air hose around and using my air impact, but you know, I'm going to the dark side slowly, including the ratchet, the electric ratchet. I love hand tools. It's just kind of, I'm pretty efficient with them, but I'm getting used to this. So these are the tools I'll be using. May use my ratchet. I do have my ratchet over here, so I can grab that. Might need that, so there we go. And I'm gonna set down here. Let's see, and then I'll go pick up the strut. So hopefully we can get a good idea what's going on here. Let's see, let's do this. I'm gonna get up here a little bit higher, kind of angle down. Not new to wrenching, but I am new to screwing around with the camera and trying to do videos. So please forgive me if this is kind of annoying or awkward, but so here's the strut right out of the box, still in the bag. So yeah, we'll get it down lower like this. We'll try this. So there we go. There is the strut assembly. I realize there's another socket I'll probably need, which is for the brake line holder. And that holder is 12 millimeter. So you will need 19 millimeter socket, 19 millimeter wrench, 14 millimeter socket for the strut bearing nuts on the top, and a 12 millimeter and ratchet for the brake line, where that attaches to the strut to hold it secure. Okay, so let's see, maybe get the camera over here. Let's see. Yeah, let's put it here. Yeah, there we go. You guys got, I mean, that's right on. The bolts I'm gonna take out and everything. There's plenty of videos. Ironman Off-Road has a great video. It's actually their instructional video on how to install this. However, I want to do a video of not doing it before on one of these cars to kind of simplify this procedure, if I can, to where anyone watching this might say, you know what, hey, that don't look that bad. We're kind of getting a full overview how it works. So I might be able to do that in a weekend at home, save some money or whatnot. You know, if you do this on your own, keep in mind you still got to get it down to the tire shop for an alignment. So I have an alignment set for a couple days from now. It is New Year's Eve, so New Year's Eve 2024. So brake line's loose. Once that's undone, I'm going to take and loosen the sway bar end link, which I did not get a socket for that. Looks like it might be an 18. It could be a 19. But yeah, it's maybe even a 17. Likely it's a 17. Yep, 17 millimeter. So I'm gonna buzz that end link off real quick. Hopefully, that's simple. Yeah, the car is brand new. I bought it in October. It's got 4,000 miles on it because, like I said, it's a lot of fun. So I've been kind of finding every excuse I can to go drive the wheels off of it. I thought it would be a great adventure vehicle, forestry roads and stuff like that in the winter. It is not. I have a Jeep Cherokee with 37s on it, built pretty well. And that is a great adventure vehicle for out in the woods. Nothing can really stop it, but you know, I found the limit of this car pretty quickly. But this will be great for spring and summertime adventures. Now, if this is like, so you got some play here. This is where you're going to get your camber adjustment. Likely, let's see. Yeah, it's this bolt's cammed. So this bolt is going to be your adjuster for camber up front, which is the tilt at the top of your tire, either in or out. More angle in at the top is negative, and less is positive. Past zero, we're gonna get a hammer. So I got a hammer and a punch. Punch is good for just getting on the center of your bolt and tapping the bolt out, so you don't mess up the threads. Okay, now our strut is loose. It's okay to let this hang freely, or nothing is in a bind or too tight. So now that I've got the strut loose, we're going to pull the top where we've got the strut bearing, and we're gonna get that loosened. So bear with me a second while I get the camera kind of adjusted here. Maybe we can get it up high enough that you guys can see. How's that? You see in there? Maybe let's go over here. All right. So we got the electric ratchet, got the hand ratchet. I am going to go For the hand ratchet option first, it looks like I can get away with a short socket rather than a deep socket. So I will be swapping that out because we kind of don't have the clearance. So we'll be right back. And once I have that loose, I don't know why. I mean, you can loosen it with this just as easily, but I'm just kind of weird about that. Okay, now we've got 2 of them undone. Now what you want to do is grab the strut from in the wheel well, support it, get that last one off. Lose it. We'll have to get a magnet, get that. And then, there you go. One strut is out. Now it's possible there's a left and a right, just by the way the bracketry on these are. And I was right. This one is indeed a right. So I'll have to get the left out of the box real quick and I'll be right back. Actually, here, let's see how. Here's my boxes. So this one's hopefully going to be the right unless it's mispackaged. Show you what we're after here. As you look at it, this is where your wheel knuckle is. The wheel will be right here. The brake line comes around the back side of the strut. So this will be towards the back of the car. And on the front side, you got this, which is going to be your ABS sensor. So that just clips into this hole. So you'll want that in the correct orientation. So they're not universal left to right because of that. Okay, so there you go. So these come with new nuts for the strut bearing mounts. So we will put these here. And then I'm going to pick the best orientation for this. It's not going to be exact, but you want to get it as close as possible. Mount this in there, then you'll rotate this into your desired position. You could put it backwards, you can do it any which way you want. It's not going to matter, you just rotate it down here. But I'm a firm believer, just try to get it close. You just have to get a couple of threads going, just so you can get the pressure off and you're not having to use so much energy to hold that in place. Yeah, and there's that nut. It conveniently fell into this little pocket right here. So we have all 3 nuts. I strongly suggest threading these onto your old strut so you can keep them for safekeeping in case you ever want to go back to stock. Okay, so you can tighten these back up now. You don't have to put the weight of the car or anything on them. And they're not 14s. They're not the same size as the factory. So that's fun. So be right back. Let me get the right socket. It is a 15, so they jump it up one size. Now, if you use an electric ratchet, do yourself a favor, don't trust it for tightness. I could have used the ratchet, tightened it, but I like the feel of my hand ratchet because I'm really familiar with it. I can pretty much kind of feel, just from experience, what would be the appropriate torque to make sure that that's tight. Okay, let's go back to down here. And you can see here, we're in our strut. There, that's mounted up, hanging. And put this here. Now it's time to assemble this. So, get it spun, this into place. And looks like we could probably stand to open this up a little bit. It's a bit snug. And the bottom. So move the knuckle out of the way. Yeah, you can see it kind of narrows down. We use a couple of pry bars and hopefully that's all it takes. Kind of spread this part. Wow, that's actually kind of mashed in there, kind of pretty good, to be honest with you. And we got quite a bit of distance there. Get that gap opened up. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that easily. Wants to go. I mean, it's kind of started. Let's get a rubber mallet. See if we can get it on with the mallet. Yeah, it's wanting to go, but man, that's quite snug. I've not had a strut be that snug when trying to install this style, but that's slowly working. And then this is where having a punch can come in handy, because you can get it in there and you can use it to line stuff up instead of a screwdriver or something of that nature. But what I'm gonna do, since I have so much freedom up top for this bolt, I'm gonna work on getting that in there. And then it's supported, and I can then finesse this so that my hardware will go in. Just like that. A little bit of work, but really not too bad. So here's what I like to do. First of all, we will snug up the bottom bolt so it's snug. And then my rule of thumb has always been with Volkswagens, run the camber all the way in to start with. That way they're both the same on each side. Negative camber isn't nearly that bad. I mean, I can't imagine you can even get a whole one degree with these cars, but I'll find out at my alignment appointment. Okay, so then that's done, and then you can put the clip back in its hole for your wheel speed sensor for the anti-lock brakes, and the hardware back in for your brake line. There we go. All right, last thing is our sway bar end link. Now look, this is going to be critical for anyone doing this. You're going to want to fight this. See how far away that is? You know, that honestly should be, in this case, 1.5 inches away. If you've got a Crosstrek Premium or Limited that does not have the additional 1/2 inch of lift that the Wilderness comes with, that will be 2 inches away. You are going to fight to get that lined up, because you got to remember that the other end of this is attached to the sway bar, which is attached to the other strut. The other strut has this right now with the suspension fully drooped. It's attached. This suspension can droop further, and I'm sure this is because it has more travel, and because of probably build, this is in a different orientation. So what you got to do is you have to replace the other strut. When you're done with that strut, this will be free. You can go up and down all you want because the sway bar will be pivoting on its sway bar bushings. Then you can put it in the hole on both sides and tighten the hardware. So for right now, we're just gonna leave this here and come back to it once the passenger side of the car is done. I'm also gonna take, and I will hand ensure that these are tight and secure, because again, I don't trust impacts or electric tools or anything like that. I want to make sure this is tight. So I will get the proper tools to get the leverage on that, so I'm confident that they won't work loose or anything like that. So there we go. There's doing one strut real time, learning as I go on the little quirks of what it may take to do it on this car. So not unfamiliar with this work, but unfamiliar with this car, this brand. So there you go. And thanks for watching. Next, we will go probably into a time lapse of doing the other side, and then I will come back in and focus on this a little bit later. Okay, so we got this shock or strut assembly in. It really took no time at all. I don't even know if it was a 10-minute job with already doing the other side and having it all figured out completely. So here we are with the sway bar disconnected. Now, if you remember right, on the other side, it was kind of like up like this. There was no way you could get it. It's so hard. It takes a lot of force of the car to even twist the sway bar. The way a sway bar works is the steel between the two mounts that hold it to, you can see here, there's these mounts. Those hold the sway bar in place. Now, basically what a sway bar is a torsion spring. So the load from side to side of the car gets distributed in corners and such when different pressures are put on these arms. As this side compresses, it takes and is trying to twist this steel, and that's what helps hold the vehicle steady so you don't get excessive body roll. And so just for anyone that didn't know that, just a little bit of quick info. But now you can see we can slide this up and down. It's free. We can take and we can line this up. Got our sway bar in its hole. Put the hardware on. Put the appropriate socket on our impact gun, and we can tighten it up. So there we go. That's tight. If you don't have an impact gun, the way that you keep the center of that in a fixed position while you loosen it, you can do it. You would have to put a wrench here, and then there's a Allen key hole here where you can put the appropriate size Allen wrench, and then you could work it that way. So if you don't have an impact, which is what is going to do that quickly and efficiently. So let's go to the other side and I'll show you. Now that we got that side attached, we should come over to this side, and our sway bar end link There we go. Should go right in. Lines up, goes right in. So that is that. And that's done. The front is absolutely 100% done. We've got both struts in here. Driver's side, it's all buttoned up. Come over here. Passenger side's all buttoned up. And we are all buttoned up here. So stay tuned now for the next part of this, where we will be attacking the rear. And hey guys, so here we are. We're gonna work on the rear. And what we gotta do here is the subframe has to drop. In turn, the sway bar has to relocate for the drop. And then we're gonna replace the shock and strut assembly here. So there's gonna be some spacers we gotta put in here between the subframe and the body. A spacer between the sway bar mount and the body, or the appropriate bracket. And then right in front of the forward bushings of the subframe is a bracket that kind of ties into the unibody. That's held in by 2 bolts. That needs to be spaced as well. So we're gonna start into this. Again, full disclosure, I've not done this before on this particular car. You know, like again, I wanna reiterate, I'm no stranger to tools and, you know, working around a car and, you know, accomplishing what I want to accomplish. But again, this is first eyes on it. Let's go and get it done. And you guys can follow along, kind of get real time, I guess, observation to see if this is something you want to tackle, or maybe you are tackling it and you found my video and maybe something I did here can help you out or something. So let's get going. We're going to remove the end link on the sway bar first from the rear hub carrier. That is a 14 millimeter nut, you know, so as far as socket size, 14 millimeter. So, yep, what I'm gonna do is just grab an extension and appropriate stuff so I can use my impact, and we're gonna remove that. Okay, so that is loose. I should be able to swing that out of the way. Yep, undone. So now I have nothing that's gonna fight me when I try to do the relocation brackets on my mount here. So we've done that. Let's go to the other side. So unfortunately, this isn't a do one side at a time installation because it's all tied together through the subframe. We gotta kind of do all of this at one shot. Well, my ultimate goal is I'm going to drop the subframe and the sway bar, get all of that done, and then we're gonna come and attack the rear struts. So we'll get this part of this done first, and then we will go from there. Now, I wanna show you where the 2 bolts are. It's kind of difficult to do from this angle, so bear with me a moment. So here's a close-up. We're gonna put a spacer right here between that and the body. Same with back here, right between that. It looks like a cast mounting cup. So we're gonna put a spacer between that silver part and the body itself. And then to do that, this bracket right here is attached to the body, which this is attached to that. Well, what we're gonna do is underneath here, there's these two bolts right here. Right here, you can see those. We're gonna loosen those and put a 2-inch spacer in there as well, so that everything is mounted on the same plane for this. And you can see, this is just a simple little bracket, comes back and then stops right there on the subframe. So Ironman Off-Road has included spacers to make sure that all of this moves as one unit and stays attached to the factory fixing point. So that's what we're gonna do. You'll see them. I'm not going to get the camera down in here, I don't think. I might try. While I do that, we might just do it from out here. But that's how we're gonna do it. Right now, we're gonna drop the sway bar. We're gonna work on that first. Actually, no, I take that back. We're gonna drop the subframe. If I drop the subframe first, that's gonna give me more clearance to get to this bottom nut, it looks like, so that I can do the sway bar easier. That's my plan of attack. Let's hope that works and do it that way. So let's see. There we go. I hope that's a good spot. You guys can see all right. Now we want to drop these bolts. We don't want to remove them. We're just gonna bring them down to where they're just about out. However, before we get too far, kind of got ahead of myself. We got to support the subframe assembly. The best way to do that is to use the differential for our lifting point, since it's all tied to the subframe. So what I'm gonna do, I have my jack under here already. I have the handle pointed towards the front of the car because I don't want my jack in the way of working around the back of the car. So I am gonna sit here and slowly get it up there. I have a block of wood here I can use. I was debating on it, but that's just gonna take up some space so that we can get there a little easier. So there we go. I've got pressure on it. It's not going to go anywhere. And it is supported. Now I can loosen and drop my bolts down a little lower. And just that allows me to get to that sway bar easier all on its own. So Okay. Okay, so those are there and in good shape. Now we have to remove those smaller screws, bolts that I showed from underneath the car. So I'm going to loosen those up. Actually, I'm going to remove those completely. And then we're going to drop the subframe and get our spacers in here. And it'd be advised, if you got safety glasses, working under a car, looking up when you've got dirt. I mean, like I said, I don't have many miles on this car. We've driven it a bit up around Mount Hood and other places, so there is some dirt. There's, you know, leaf debris and stuff like that built up in this area, needles from, you know, backcountry roads. It sucks when you get something in your eye. So if you're working, looking up, even though you're away from it, a pair of safety glasses can go a long way for your comfort, just for the brief little bit of work that you're going to do where you're loosening hardware and stuff like that, where your hands are up working on stuff. You know, I'm not saying you have to wear them the whole time, but wear them when they're appropriate, when you got to protect your eyes. Okay, so we'll remove those bolts up front for the brackets. There is a plastic, I don't want to call it a skid plate because skid plates aren't plastic, but there is a piece of plastic attached to it. It's forgiving enough that it's not going to impede putting the spacer in there. And you're going to use a 14mm socket for these bolts. And there we go. Everything's loose. Now I can remove these bolts. You might want to grab your tool, whether it be a ratchet or whatever, to get those the rest of the way out, because the subframe does shift a little bit. It does put some pressure. You may not be able to just loosen them by hand easily. Okay, so here's what I'm finding is I've got my jack a little too far back. I was thinking about, I think we'll be okay. It's a little too far back, so it wants to roll the subframe. We can manage okay with it this way. I'll start with the front ones because it wants to create a natural gap up front. I'll get the front ones in with the bolts, the new bolts, and then be able to work on the back ones. So be sure when you do that, you've got that centered, so it doesn't want to do that. So it looks like we get bolts and flat washers for this application. So be sure to grab each bolt and put a washer on it. The factory ones have a flange head on them. All right, so let's see how I manage here. Do it from outside here. So our spacer is going to go right here. Put it on. I'm a bit OCD with everything, so I'm very particular with stuff. So I'm going to mount this so that you can see the logo and it's right side up and you know, all that fancy stuff. Okay. Now, I was able to start that by hand. However, I want to make sure I did not cross thread it. So, I'm going to grab a ratchet with the right size socket to start that. And the new bolts are a 21 millimeter socket. So what I'm going to do, I've got this started. I just want to make sure I'm not going to cross thread it when I put my impact on it. And I've got quite a few turns on it. It's in good shape. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to go to the other side and put the other one in. Okay, now I have the front secure. I'm going to lower this jack a little bit more so that I can get the distance out of the back half of the subframe to put those spacers in. There we go. That should do it. So 2 spacers, 1 for each side. 2 bolts and 2 washers. Now, you might have noticed on the rear hardware, there's these cups. We want to reinstall the cups. And to do that, I'm sure there's some trick because the exhaust might be in the way or something. So let's see. If we put it on and want to put it in there, yeah, it's gonna get in the way. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take the cup, we're gonna get it up above the exhaust, and then put our bolt through. Get all that lined up, and get the bolt started. Now I've got it started pretty good by hand, but I want to make sure there's no issues. So I'm just going to put it in a little further with my wrench. And I'm going to repeat that same process for the other side over here. This side, you can put the cup right on it because you don't have the exhaust in the way like we did over there. Now I've got that started really well by hand. Just make sure my wrench, I can get it in further. We're good. Now I'm not afraid to hit it with the impact and booger up any threads. Next, we got to put the spacers in that we had looked at further for the little wing brackets. Let's call them wing brackets that come off the front of the subframe. So in our box, we've got a set of those brackets. We've also got hardware for them, which looks to be these longer stainless bolts, which have washers as well. Now, talk about washers. In my opinion, there's only one way a washer goes. If you look at it, you'll look, and when they stamped these out, it's flat, or on the top, it's kind of beveled. There's a nice little bevel to it. That's the top, in my opinion. That will always be the top. Again, it's likely my OCD again. Just how I am. So we're gonna install these up front now. Hopefully. Oh yeah. Okay, here's where safety glasses might be a nice thing to have. But I'm just gonna pull this down, slide the bracket in there. New hardware in. Get it tightened up. But looks like you have to finagle it a little bit because we're at a little bit of an angle just by design. So you gotta, looks like you gotta manipulate it. It's gonna take some manipulation. just to get it in line where you want that to go. Get the bolt started. It might be easier if you unbolt the plastic, because ultimately that's kind of what's frustrating me, is because it's adding another element of difficulty to just making something relatively simple. So find socket for that. There we go. I already had it over here. Okay, let's try this again. So I'm going to remove this. It's not the right size. Okay, I am not screwing with that. Okay, I had the right size socket over there, so let's remove this screw and see if we make life a little easier. Okay. Much easier. All right, that's right in place. I'm gonna install the other side. I'll take and put it like this. Here, let's go, first of all, we'll get the right size socket. These are a different size. They're 16 millimeter than what the factory hardware was that took out. But you can see, hey, why are we so close? There we go. Man, I hope the whole video wasn't like that. We have some editing. All right, so there's that. And that. And then here's the other little bracket. We're gonna have to go sideways, so bear with me. It is right there. You can see that with the logo. So that's the bracket that needs installed. So let's go to the other side. Okay. All right. Now we got our bracket and our bolts. Have the tool to remove the screw. Now I can pull this plastic down out of the way kind of get some more manipulation going here. Okay, we got that started. We'll line it up. The bracket with the holes on the other, and get that in there. Start by hand again. Okay. So there we go. That's all tightened up. Now you could probably take and tighten the subframe up, lift it off the jack with the bolts. I'm a proponent of trying not to force things. I feel like that's forcing things to a degree. So I am going to lift the subframe back up into place, mostly. We still have the ability for some movement. You know, this is this is important here. Let's discuss this. Get in alignment when you're done, because you can easily, I mean, keep in mind, this subframe could have been shifted one way or the other when it was installed. So now your toe is going to be off. You know, you could have toe out. What ultimately you're going to end up having is one side the toe out and the other side the toe's too far in, because you virtually just kind of twisted the whole assembly. So that's quite a possibility. You've got adjustments and everything to get it back, but you know, consider that when doing this. Yeah, it looks like got some. Let's see. Yeah, I would. I can't quite. Yeah, we've got toe. These arms on the front are just like tie rods on a steering rack. So you do have adjustment, factory adjustment, to get that toe adjusted. So just kind of find the neutral position where this wants to sit and tighten it up, making sure you get the right size socket. Now I'm snugging it up. I'll come back and tighten it completely up. Okay, so we're done there. Now we need to tighten up our brackets that are up front here. And what did we say? That was a 16. Here we go, here's a 16, a socket. This guy is a 1/4 inch drive, so I need my adapter for 3/8. So we'll put that on. And 16. Tighten this up. And then you got to get that other bolt in that you took out on the plastic shield. Whoa. Which appears that likes to hold a lot of dirt. And man, there we go. There, that's back together. Hold tight, and I will go and put the other side back together. Okay, there we go. The rear subframe drop is in place, and boy, what a difference. You can really see that's considerable. So next step is we want to work on getting the sway bar relocated. So that will be our next step. Okay, so I tried making a video of this for you. We're gonna put our spacers in here for the sway bar bracket. This is the sway bar bracket. I tried showing you how to assemble this, but it's pretty straightforward. The kit comes with these and the bolts separate. You know, they're not screwed together. You want to put some red Loctite on the threads, kind of at the base of them, before you thread them in here. Thread them in here, get them snug, or tight, actually. Get them tight with your ratchet or whatever tool you're using. You might get some red Loctite squeezed out here. Wipe it off with your towel. That way you're not making a mess and getting it on you and your parts. So basically, you're going to put this on. This one is going to go on the driver's side. This one is, oh, okay, so doesn't matter which side you put it on. One side, the down is going to be visible, which will be the driver. The passenger side, that won't be visible. But what you're going to do is you're going to remove this assembly. Basically, remove the nuts, pull the sway bar down. So we'll remove the nuts on both sides so that the sway bar is 100% free. And then we're gonna bolt this up into place with the existing hardware through these holes. And then that's gonna give us new studs to mount the factory unit back onto. And what this is doing is it's helping to keep the sway bar in the correct orientation with the A-arms so that they don't, this sway bar is so short between the pivot and the end link. If this was to stay up here, you'd actually be fighting against the sway bar because you'd be pushing your load right into the pivot. And you don't want to do that. The sway bar won't work like that. You'll get a real crap ride if you do it that way. You drop the sway bar this way. Now your sway bar can pivot. So that load still goes this way, but your arm is on a fulcrum right here, which is going to still allow it to pivot. If that's up here, you're just pushing against it. So that's the design as to why they do that. So let's get the sway bar done and watch me get that done here. So I think that looks like a 14 millimeter. I'm gonna find the 14 millimeter socket, which is right here. No, it is not. It's considerably smaller, like a 12 or a 13. So I'll be right back. So the 12 millimeter socket is the answer. So let's see. It looks like the best way to approach this might be to take and I could use the impact. It's a bit overkill for this. Just use a combination of extensions so that you can reach up through the suspension components and get it loose. And the more extensions you have, the more flexibility you get. You kind of get a flexible get the flexibility of that. Okay, and it looks like this sway bar is going to allow us to be able to do one side at a time. So we're going to slide this in onto the factory holes, just like that. We're going to use the factory bolts, or factory nuts, I should say. Gosh, terrible mistake. Don't call a bolt a nut. So take that factory nut, thread it back on. Of course, it wants to be a little bit in the way. Pull the bracket off. You can pull the bracket off. You can pull the bushing off if you want to. But we're going to try and just work around that with the bracket removed. You can take and put your nut in your socket. Feed it up through here. Get her there and get it started. Just like that. tighten back up. I'm kind of trying to do this so you guys can see it. So my approach with my tool is a little different. There we go. It's nice and tight. Take our sway bar bracket. It's just a simple little bracket. Just goes right back over that rubber. Just like that. Put it like that. Take your nuts that you get from Ironman off-road. They're serrated flange nuts. And thread them back on. Serrated flange nuts are nice because they bite into the material when you tighten them down, and they don't have a tendency to come loose. And I bet this is a different size. Bet you this isn't a 12. I bet you it's a 14. So let's see, do I still have my 14 here? I do. Oops. Let's see. Not gonna work. Yep, 14 millimeter socket is the correct size. No, it's not. 14 is not the right size. It's 13. Yeah, 13 on this, guys. Sorry about that. Let's get up in here again. We're not on it too square. Maybe through here. Nope. Maybe a different assortment of ratchets or extensions. Here we go. Right there. Nice and tight. And that should get us on that one. Nice and tight. Okay. So let's go to the other side, guys. All right, and we'll do this one. Might even, without all those extensions, be able to get it right here. Yep. Yep, that's gonna be easy, just like that. So if you have a manual ratchet, that's feasible. Right here, that's a lot easier than screwing around with all those extensions. Okay, now as we learned, pull the bracket off right away. Now you couldn't see it on the other side, but here on the driver's side you can see it. You want it to indicate down. You want, what you're doing is you're pushing your sway bar down. So that's what you're going to do, is put that on with the down arrow pointed down. Get that started. Grab other. Now keep in mind, you can see here, this is the factory nut. This is the one that comes with the kit. This one's serrated. This is the aftermarket nut. This is what you'd likely find at your hardware store This is the factory Subaru one, it's smooth. This is the one that you want to use to reinstall that bracket. Remember, we're using the factory hardware to put this bracket back in place. Okay, 13 millimeter for the new hardware. All right, the sway bar is now done. Next step is the shocks. So let's go back over here. I think I'll start working on this side to do the shocks. Okay, so to do the rear, we're going to replace the strut assembly. As you remember at the beginning of the video, we're on the front, you have a particular part for the right and you have a particular part for the left. The rear, it's the same exact strut assembly. So it doesn't matter orientation or anything like that. There's just a fixing bolt at the top and then 2 nuts rather than 3. You have 2 nuts at the top holding the top strut mount in place. So I've already removed the interior panel and the carpet so we can access that easily. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this nut and bolt so that I can get the strut assembly free from the lower control arm. Now, one way you can do this, you can remove this bolt out here. It looks like we've got the electronic park brake here. So we've got a connector here. It's kind of congested here with the potential of breaking stuff. So I'm going to opt at removing the bolt on the inboard portion of the control arm. This is the actual pivot of the control arm at the subframe. I'm going to remove this and drop that down so that I can get the shock out. Now we may need to loosen this hardware, however, so that this will freely go up and down. Now keep in mind, here we are, we've got bushings at each end here. These bushings are fixed inside the control arm. So once we take this apart to put it back together, we want to load this suspension, because if you don't, you're going to tighten this down and that center bushing is going to be fixed, and then now you're forcing the rubber to be manipulated by the control arm to go into neutral ride height position. So that's just going to wear these bushings out very fast because you're already kind of putting it in a twisted bind. So you want it to be in its natural state when you tighten this down. So what we're going to do in this particular case, since we're up on a lift, is once we get this assembly back together, before we do a final tighten of this hardware, I'm going to put my jack under the knuckle. And I'm going to jack this car up until it just slightly starts to lift some weight off of my quick jack. At that point, that's when I'm going to tighten this, because that's where it's going to want to support the weight of the vehicle and be kind of in its neutral position, with the give from neutral going either way in that bushing for suspension droop or compression. So that's one thing to consider when you're working on control arm bushings, where it's a radial bushing that's tight. You kind of want that rubber to be kind of in a neutral, natural position. So I'm going to grab my tools and get this loose, pull this bolt, and get the bottom of our strut free. Okay, so I was talking about the bushings and tightening them with a load and stuff. This inboard one is actually like a uniball, or a kind of like a tie rod end, as it looks to be a full spherical unit. So it has the ability to rotate and also articulate. So it's not as critical out here. You can actually leave this bolt tight and just drop the control arm. But that said, when I tighten everything up, I'm still going to lift the suspension so that this gets tightened in its relative neutral position to help minimize any premature bushing wear. So that's what we will be doing. So now that we are loose here, we've dropped that, I can have full movement here of the strut. We'll go up to the inside of the car and remove those bolts. Okay, here we are. And let's see, you guys, there, how's that? Does that work okay? Try to get a good handle here on this. How about if we put it back here? How's that? Not very good. Here we go. This is what we need to do. We can put that there. No, that ain't gonna work still. Oh, there we go. Hey, that'll work. Okay, so next step is to remove this. Looks like maybe a 14. Because it seems like all the factory stuff's been 14, and then it'll be a different size with the Ironman stuff, right? So let's loosen this. Okay. All right, so I have a different idea. I'm going to put that control arm back up in place to hold this shock up. We'll remove these and then we'll go back down and we'll pull the shock out with these nuts removed. So bear with me one moment. Because you can't grab it from the inside. You can't loosen this and reach around and grab the strut. And it's not like the front, so there we go. That hardware is out. Come back down here, and now we're back to removing the strut. So same thing, pull the bolt. Now you're gonna have to hold the strut up as you lower this and then drop it out. Reversal of this is gonna be the same way. I suspect I'll put it up there. You know, you could have a helper tighten the nuts and then let it free hang here. Or you can slide it up there, put this back up into place with the appropriate bolt and hold it there. Put your hardware on up top. Okay, so from here I can see the holes. So we'll there we go. It's up and in. We're gonna take this, put it in there. Okay, now it's longer, right? So we're gonna have to like do double duty here. Get this in. You know what? Let's see. We're fighting all of that at once. Let's do this. Let's put the bolt in down here. There we go. Got that in. Now we can, oh yeah, it's a lot easier. Not as much of a strain. You're not fighting stuff. Now you just got to get it lined up. Want to go in just like that. Now you can take this and work it into place. And this is might be where getting your punch again will come in handy. This isn't as easy as one might think. Okay. Okay, just like that. What I found is if you don't try putting the bushing in through the bottom here. Come at it from over here in the front and push it in. You've kind of got a lot more space and forgiving characteristics of this bracket so that you can actually slide it up in there. Use a punch or a screwdriver to help get that centered, and you can get your bolt in. Maybe have your hammer handy instead of your impact as a hammer so that you can tap that in. So not too bad. It's just that's a little bit of wrestling, but not bad at all. So now we can go up to the top. We're going to put our nuts back on that it came with the strut. Change out our socket because of course it's not the same size. Just like that. So that is all in there now. What I have to do is just tighten up that hardware after I compress the suspension to where it should be. So let's do that real quick. Let's do that before we go to the other side. So what if we put that there, move all of our tools, our shock assembly, and Let me get my jack out of here. Okay. So we're gonna jack this up. All right. Let's see how. Ooh. Okay, what I'm gonna do, actually, I mean, that's only going up maybe an inch. I'll show you guys. We'll do that once we get the car completely on the ground. I feel like we'll have enough ground clearance that I can crawl under there and tighten that up. What it's doing is, because of the motor hangs so far forward, we're kind of imbalanced here on my lift, and so lifting it, I'm not getting quite as much compression out of it as I want. I could set some jack stands up front to keep that from happening, but I think I'm just gonna put it on the ground and we will tighten those up. So on to the other side. Okay, so we've got the struts in. Now we have to relocate the brake line. Right up here where it comes out of the hard line, it's kind of in a little bind. It's less than ideal. So we're gonna take and remove this. Oops. Okay. So now we'll be able to raise that up in the air. What's nice is the bracket has a little bend in it, so we can kind of give it that natural little bit of bend to it. So what we're gonna do is we're going to put that one back in there for that. And then we got to take and put hardware in here, in which they supply, you know, Ironman off-road, they supply this. So you take that hardware, install the split ring lock washer first, then your flat washer, put that through, and put the bolt in place. Remember, whenever there's multiple washers, you always want to put the lock washer against the head of the bolt, and then the flat washer against the surface in which you're bolting onto. Okay, so when you do this, just be sure you do it in such a way that you don't have the ABS wire in a bind here. Ideally, I would pull the ABS sensor out, feed it underneath this, but that's more than adequate. We're okay there. That's not an issue. So they've done a good job there with the bracket, I feel, for the relocation. So now, just gotta do that to the other side. So let's go to the other side. Get that done. Let's see how that is. Okay. Get this done. Okay, here, see, I kind of got to work with that in your way. Make sure you just get it, the vehicle speed sensor wire, just kind of make sure you keep it over here so it doesn't get all bound up. Easy to do. Okay, just like that. Last but not least, we cannot forget this. We got to put the sway bar back in. So here's our link and our hole. Hope you can see that. Just kind of finagle it in there, start the nut. Remember, get it started pretty well. This is with any piece of hardware, lug nuts, anything. Get them started before you put an impact on them. And if I remember right, that is a 14 millimeter. So grab our 14 millimeter socket and our impact and button it down. And then go over to the other side. Now that we have the ride height the same on both sides, I should be able to take this link, put it right in the hole. Without much issue. Put our nut on it. Do a couple spins on it. Hit it. And that's it. I mean, if you don't trust that you know what the torque on a bolt should be or whatnot, you know, grab a torque wrench and find the specs of all these and make sure they're tight. But by hand, I can tell. Now, I'm gonna stop the video. Maybe I'll do some time lapse. I'm getting this back together and on the ground, and then we're gonna come back and revisit tightening up the hardware on those fixed radial bushings so that we make sure that they last. So I'll come back and walk through that. Okay, so as you recall, I explained about tightening the hardware in these bushings while on the ground. And that is what we are going to do. So in this particular case, I mean, the lift is done. I can crawl under the car, no problem now. So here we are for the shock. Okay, and then for the inboard control arm bolt. And then same for the shock on this side. Now, this bolt, a little more difficult to do because the exhaust is in the way. So we gotta do this one by hand. There we go. That's simple. Now we don't have to worry about those bushings wearing out sooner than they should.